I strongly believe that NATO should strengthen its relationship with Ukraine in order to deter further Russian aggression. Before I go into my speech, I'd like to go over the definition of should. The definition of should, according to OxfordDictionaries.com, is an obligation, duty, or correctness. In deciding the course of action, we need to weigh the advantages against the disadvantages of NATO strengthen its relationship with Ukraine. Subpoint 1. Stronger NATO-Ukraine relationships will help deter Russia and the problem. Subpoint A. Exporting gas is an environmentally dangerous response to Russian aggression. Chuan Cole, professor of history at the University of Michigan on March 6, 2014 said, John Boehner urged that the U.S. export more natural gas to Europe to offset the Russian advantage. This suggestion implies a press to increase hydraulic fracturing, which is environmentally debilitating, a water hog, a water polluter, and is implicated in deadly methane and CO2 emissions that will sink Miami and New York. Submerging our own cities is not a very logical response to Russian adventurism. Subpoint B. Ukraine border guards under rebel attacks. Arthur Bright, Europe editor, Christian on Science Monitor on June 2, 2014 said, Oleg Solobadian, a Ukrainian border service spokesman, told the New York Times that the border guard had yet to receive help it has requested from the government. Mr. Solobadian had told the Times, our mission was never intended to be one that repelled large armed attacks. Contention 2. Russia and Ukraine problems are escalating. Subpoint A. Russia is using energy to squeeze Ukraine's economy. Washington Post on June 2, 2014 said Russia's energy ministry confirmed it has received $786.4 million from the Ukraine's natural gas for gas deliveries, which will stop Russia from cutting off natural gas to the violence-racked country for this week. The partial payment comes as Russian leaders showed that they are prepared to squeeze their struggling neighbor economically, even as Russian citizens take an increasingly open role in the violent conflict in the East. Subpoint B. Recent border clashes prove Russia is involved in the conflict. Arthur Bright, Europe editor, Christian Science Monitor, on June 2, 2014 said, Derek Pollitt, Assistant Secretary of Defense, told the Post that the fighting was an indication of interference in Ukraine by Russia, which the U.S., EU, and Kiev have blamed for stirring chaos in the East. It's a further example of the destabilizing activities supported by the Russian in the East. Subpoint C. Despite Russia's pullback, thousands of troops remain on the border. New York Times on May 30, 2014 said, Defense Secretary said that the U.S. Department of Defense knows that thousands of Russian troops have been pulled back. But he added, we also know that there are still thousands of Russian troops still there that have not yet moved. Mr. Havel called the initial threat promising, but said that they are not where they need to be and won't be until all the troops that they have positioned along the border a couple of months ago are gone. Contention 3. Russia is trying to stir up new problems in Ukraine. Subpoint A. Russia's involvement is increasing even as they pull back troops. While the Russian military appears to be rolling, there is an increasing sign of Russian involvement along the rebels on the ground in the east. Russian state news agency RIA Novosti reported yesterday that some 50 rebels killed in fighting. 33 have been identified as Russian nationals. Subpoint B. The presence of Chechen troops in an invasion. Anand Applebaum, Pulitzer winning correspondent, on May 30, 2014 said, Ukraine is on the brink of financial catastrophe and is fighting de facto invasion. Well-armed Chechen troops have now arrived to assist the Russian-made insurgency in the West. For all the reasons and more, my partner and I urge a pro ballot.